If you have ever felt like your heart races when you feel emotionally distant from your partner, or like every little argument could lead to a breakup, then this video is for you. We're diving deep into something that affects a lot of us, and that is anxious attachment. We're going to talk about why anxious attachment makes conflict feel so threatening, and more importantly, how to manage those fears so that you can navigate conflict smoother in the future. Stick around because I'll also be sharing some practical tips from key researchers in this area, including Dr. John Gottman, Sue Johnson, and Diane Poole. If you are new here, my name is Wes, and I am a couples therapist based in Chicago. This channel is devoted to helping you improve your mental health and relationships because I believe strongly that the more we can improve our relationships, the better the world will be. Let's get started with an introduction to anxious attachment. What is anxious attachment? It comes from the way that we form emotional bonds, starting in childhood with our primary caregiver. People with an anxious attachment style often grew up with caregivers who were inconsistent, sometimes emotionally available and sometimes distant. This leads to a heightened sensitivity to rejection or abandonment when you are in an adult relationship. When conflict arises, people with an anxious attachment style react more intensely because they fear that any disagreement could lead to disruption of the relationship. This isn't just an emotional response, it's actually neurological. As Dr. Stan Tatkin talks about in his book Wired for Love, our brains are wired to seek attachment security, and when it feels threatened, our fight or flight response actually kicks in. We sense threat and we respond just like we would to an actual physical danger to our health. So how does an anxious attachment style sometimes lead to conflict escalation? Let's imagine that you're waiting on a text from your partner and they haven't responded to you for a few hours. What starts to go through your mind is, are they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? These thoughts quickly spiral and they start to leave you feeling panicked. You're worried that you did do something wrong and maybe the relationship is over. When your partner finally responds to you, you might say something like, "Why are you ignoring me?" And they might even see a dozen texts from you because you got so panicked that you started to text them a bunch. You started to really worry that you had done something wrong there, instead of actually expressing your real concern, which is that emotional distance. You might have ruined something in your relationship. This kind of response from you could escalate the situation with your partner. Your partner might get defensive and say, "I wasn't ignoring you. What are you talking about?" And now what could have been a simple expression of your anxiety to your partner turns into a full-blown conflict fueled by anxiety. According to Dr. Sue Johnson, the founder of emotionally focused therapy, anxious individuals are often protesters of insecurity or emotional disconnection. In Your Brain on Love, Stan talks about how your attachment security is threatened. It actually fires up your brain's fear center, sending you into fight or flight. This can make you feel more emotionally reactive and can even lead to flooding, where you're just totally overwhelmed. This is why small arguments can feel so catastrophic when you're coming from this viewpoint. Dr. John Gottman's research shows that when couples are in this kind of flooded state where they're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, constructive conflict resolution is nearly impossible. You can't think straight, your prefrontal cortex is virtually offline, and so you can't really negotiate with your partner and come to a good resolution. So what do we want to do here? If you are somebody who leans towards the anxious attachment style with your partner, what are some ways that we can begin to improve the way that we handle conflict? The first step is when everything feels like it's falling apart, you need to learn to self-regulate. One of the best ways to do this is through mindful breathing. Dr. Diane Poole Heller, who wrote the book, The Power of Attachment, talks about using grounding techniques to ground yourself in your sensory awareness can be one of the best ways to bring you down from that state of panic that you might be in when you were feeling this perceived emotional gulf between you and your partner. The one way to do that is through deep breathing exercises or grounding exercises, things like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Look at 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. That's a good grounding exercise to get you back into your body in the present moment. Or breathing exercises where you're counting your in breath, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then out breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That will activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which will help you regulate and calm yourself and your body in those moments. Number 2 is that you can shift from reactivity to vulnerability. In his book, Wired for Love, Dr. Stan Tatkin talks about how important it is to express emotional vulnerability to your partner. Because the more emotionally vulnerable you are, the more you allow them to open up to you and respond back with safety, with warmth, with emotional vulnerability on their side too. A big way to do this is through I feel statements. I talk about these, I feel like, in almost every video, but that's because they're so important. Talking about your feelings, saying, I felt really anxious when you didn't text me back. I was really upset because I was worried that something might be wrong between us, and I felt really anxious about it. That kind of statement to your partner allows your partner to see just how painful it was for you in that moment, and hopefully respond with reassurance, empathy, with warmth. Instead of getting defensive and saying, I don't have to text you back every 10 minutes, do I? They could say something like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much it was affecting you. I'm so sorry. I totally just spaced and I was hanging out with my friends and I just didn't think about it. I'm so sorry. Maybe I can find a way to set a reminder on my phone so I can text, more often and just check in a little bit next time. You can see how offering up that emotional vulnerability from yourself can encourage emotional warmth from your partner. Step 3 here is to set up repair rituals with your partner. John Gottman's research shows that even couples who argue frequently can make it in the long term if they set up repair rituals with each other to come back together after conflict occurs. A repair ritual can be a small gesture or phrase or way of de-escalating the situation and getting you guys back to normal. And this can be really helpful, especially if your partner knows that you tend to lean towards that anxious attachment style, which goes back to that emotional vulnerability. So being honest about the way that you're feeling helps your partner understand what it is that is bothering you so much. And if they mess up and don't respond to you, or you mess up and you get really panicky and say something that you shouldn't have when you're feeling emotionally distant from them, you both can come back to the middle by preparing some kind of relationship ritual that respects your anxiety that you may feel because of this kind of attachment style that you have at the moment and creates safety and security for you two. Now, look, I can't tell you what the repair ritual could be for you and your partner, but I can tell you what I've seen from other partners. And it can be as simple as throwing a joke in, or just simply offering up your arms and pulling your partner into a hug, or doing something really silly that cracks the ice and gets you both in a better place. It can also be as simple as apologizing too, and trying to pull each other back to a place of normalcy. The goal here is to try to get to repair as soon as possible, because remember that feeling of disconnection can actually really raise our fight or flight response. Once you and your partner have talked about things and you've been emotionally vulnerable with them, they've responded with empathy, you want to try to get back to that repair place as soon as you possibly can. Try to work with your partner on developing some kind of fun ritual that you both can do for when those repair moments need to be done. If you have an anxious attachment style, remember, conflict doesn't have to be something that you fear. Learning how to self-regulate, check your inner dialogue, and build repair rituals with your partner, you can navigate conflict with your partner without these feelings of overwhelming anxiety and abandonment. Over time, you and your partner can slowly begin to move towards a more secure feeling relationship. If you like this video, thank you so much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm and hit subscribe if you like this content. Share this with someone who you think might benefit from it. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.